this session. So we'll start. So rounding sig figs. Okay? Whenever you're trying to round a number to a desired placeholder, whether it be the tenths, the ones, the thousandths, whatever it may be, what you're going to do is you're going to underline that placeholder that you want to round to. So if you're rounding to the tens place, you're going to underline the tens digit. If you're rounding to the thousandths, you're going to underline the thousandths digit. Okay? What you're going to do next is, once you underline which place you want to round to, you're going to look immediately to the right. So look to the number directly to the right of the number placeholder you're trying to round to. If that number to the right is less than 4, you're going to keep the underlying number the same. If the number to the right of the placeholder is greater than or equal to 5, you're going to round up 1. Okay, so those are the rules of rounding with sig figs. Okay? Let's put this in practice, for example. Okay, rounding sig figs. So in parentheses here, what I have is the placeholder that I want you to try to round to. Okay, and we'll do some of these together. So for example, 51.4 to the ones place. So here's the ones place, okay, where that 1 is, and I look immediately to the right of it, that 4. That 4 is less than 5. So what I do is I round this to 51. Okay, I round it to 51. Notice my last digit is the ones place, okay, where I want it to round to. Okay. The next one here, 4.68 to the tenths place. So the tenths, I'm going to try to write left-handed here, is right where that 6 is. Okay. I looked immediately to the right of that placeholder, the tenths, and it's 8, which is 5 or greater. So that 8 rounds that 6 up to a 7, so my rounded answer is 4.7. Notice I've rounded this to the tenths place. 4.68 is pretty darn close to 4.7. Letter C, 10001.4, 10,001.4, rounded to the ones place. So the ones place is that 1. Look to the right of that underlined unit. It's a 4. It stays as a 1. So to the ones place, this is 10,001. This next one here, 24,900 to the thousands place. So thousands is where the 4 is. I look immediately to the right of that number. It's a 9, which is greater than 5. So the 9 rounds the 4 up to a 5. So this becomes, to the nearest thousands, 25,000. Letter E, 15.678 to the tens. Well, here's my ones, here's my tens. So the 1 is the tens holder. I look to the right, the 5 rounds that up to a 2, so that becomes 20. 7.991 times 10 to the 4th. Once again, this is written in scientific notation. Don't worry about the magnitude. That just simply tells you which way to move that decimal. In this case, move the decimal 4 to the right. Okay, but we're not going to worry about the magnitude. I want to round this to the hundredths. Okay, so the hundredths is the second 9. That 1 is less than 5, so I keep it as a 9. So to the nearest hundredth, this is 7.99. Don't forget the magnitude. Times 10 to the 4th. All right? 5, 5, 4, 1, 6, 7, 8, 9, 4 to the 10 millions place. Okay, so this is rather a big number. So I don't get confused here. I'm going to put some parentheses every 3 digits or placeholders. It makes it a little bit easier for me to see that. So the 4's the ones, tens, hundreds, thousand, 10,000, 100,000, million. This is the 10 million spot at 5. So I look, the 4 keeps the 5 as a 5. So to the nearest 10 millions, this is 55. Let's squeeze it in there. 50. Now I can't leave it like that, right? Because 55 is nowhere, whoops. 55 is nowhere near 554 million. So the rest of these numbers drop out as placeholders. Don't forget to do that. So this becomes 550 million, not 55. Right? And this last number here, 304.67811, and it keeps on going to the tens. The tens is right there. The 4 keeps the 0 as a 0. So this becomes 300, not 30. Don't forget that 4 drops out. And that's rounding with Sig Figs. Okay. Your turn. Okay. At this moment, what I'd like you to do is pause the video and take a stab at rounding these numbers. 104 to the tens, thousandths, hundreds, thousandths with a D-T-H-S on the end, hundreds, thousandths, tens, and thousands. Okay? So take a stab at it. When you feel like you're ready to see the answers, resume the video. Okay, so our answers here. So we're going to go to the tens. That's the 0. The 4 keeps the 0 as a 0, so the answer to that is 100. If you got that, thumbs up. Okay. Thousandths. That's the 4. The 5 rounds the 4 up to a 5. I'm going to squeeze this in here. The answer to this is 0.005. Okay, the next one here, 100ths. That's the 4. The 5 rounds it up to a 5. So this drops out as 5. But don't forget those zeros. They bottom out and become 500. Thousandths, that is the 7. The 5 rounds the 7 up to an 8. So the answer becomes 0.068. 760 to the hundreds. That's the hundreds. The 6 is 5 or greater, so the 7 becomes an 8. 800. 35.1699 to the hundredths. That's the first 9 here. And this one's a little tricky. That last 9 rounds this 9 up to a 10, which carries over and makes the 6 a 7. So this really becomes 35.170. That's a tricky one. 145.122. We're looking at the tens place here, and that's the 4. The 5 rounds the 4 up to a 5, so this becomes 150. And lastly, 7.89 continuing million, right? 7.8 million to the thousands, which is right here. This 9 makes this a 0, which makes this another 10, which adds to the 9. So this becomes 7, 9, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay, let me double check that again, make sure I did that right. Okay, so we're going to the thousands, that's this 9 right here. This 9 makes this a 10, which makes this a 90. Right? It carries over, so it's 7.9 million. Once again, if you got those, great. Keep on going. If not, replay the video. Look at some more of the explanation behind it. Okay. Sig Fig rules. Okay, so at this point of the ball game, you know how to use the Atlantic Pacific rule. You know how to determine how many sig figs there are in a number, and you know how to round with sig figs. Now, what do you do when you have problems that add sig figs? For example, if you took 5 different measurements and they were all different amounts of milliliters of volume, how do you get the right number? Where do you cut off a number, and what part of a number do you keep? Okay? There's 2 different kinds of rules here. The first rules we're going to talk about are involved with multiplication and division. And here's what you do. Okay? The number of sig figs in your answer is determined by the number that has the least number of sig figs in the problem. Okay, I'll say that again. Multiplication and division, your answer is going to have the same number of sig figs as the number that has the least amount of sig figs in the answer. Right? For example, 2.4 times 1.11. Okay? So before we tackle this problem, let's figure out how many sig figs we have. So both numbers have a decimal, so I think Pacific, right? The left side, so I'm going from left to right. So this number has 2 sig figs. I'm going to put that in parentheses. And this number has 3 sig figs. Okay? My answer is going to have the same number of sig figs with the fewest number. So 2.4 only has 2 sig figs. 1.11 has 3, so we're going to have 2 sig figs in our answer. Okay? So I'm going to use my calculator. Where's my calculator? Here we go. And what I'm going to do is type in 2.4 times 1.11. And I get this answer of 2.664. Now I'm not going to keep that because Sig Fig rules say I have to have 2 sig figs here. Okay, so those numbers are the most certain. The more we go to the right, our uncertainty in that last digit increases. So I'm going to round this to 2 sig figs using everything we've learned about sig figs thus far. The 6 rounds that 6 up to a 7, so my correct answer is 2.7. 2 sig figs. Okay. This next problem, 601 times 6. Okay, I don't see any decimals here, so I think Atlantic side. So I count from right to left. So 601 has 1, 2, 3 sig figs. I'm going to put that in parentheses. 6 has 1 sig fig. So 1 is less than 3. That's the fewest number of sig figs. I'm restricted by that 6. That 6 isn't very precise. It goes by ones. So unfortunately, my final answer has to be to 1 sig fig. So let's type this in. We have 601 times 6. That gives me 3606. Okay. Well, this is my most certain digit to the left. I look to the right of that, and it's a 6. The 6 rounds the 3 up to a 4. And everything else, bottoms out. And that's 1 sig fig. Notice there's no decimal. I start at the right, not significant. No, no, yes. So that has 1 sig fig. That's my correct answer here. Okay. So once again, just to reiterate, multiplication and division, the least number of sig figs in the problem. Okay. Now we have a set of different rules here.